Welcome back. Now we'll take a look at the news in detail. We're starting from Afghanistan, where 17 pro-government troops have been killed after Taliban attacked in the northern Takhar province. The provincial officials said 4 others were wounded in attack on forces base in Khwaja Bahauddin district. Claiming responsibility, the Taliban said 21 soldiers were killed in this ambush. More news from Afghanistan. Kabul says it will disclose a list of negotiators for intra-Afghan talks after the US and Taliban sign a peace deal. The talks between Taliban and Washington are on hold since December 11th attack on Bagram Air Base. In a statement, the Afghan presidential palace has said the delegation will represent the government of Afghanistan. Deputy spokesperson Mr. Durrani Javed Waziri said Kabul will only hold a dialogue if the Taliban show readiness to talk with the Afghan people. And in related news, Pakistan's embassy in Kabul has announced resumption of visa services after a 3-month diplomatic row with Afghanistan. The mission had closed its visa section to protest harassment of its diplomats in Afghanistan. In a statement, the embassy said it is happy to announce that the visa section with full consular services will resume its work from today. Meanwhile, Afghan authorities also announced the reopening of Peshawar Consulate General after a nearly 3-month closure. The mission had been shut to protest removal of Afghan national flag from an Afghan market built on a disputed piece of land. Now, Indian academics and historians protested against the Citizenship Amendment Act during a history conference in Kerala state. Countrywide demonstrations and protests continue in India against the controversial law that is deemed anti-Muslim. Indian media has reported that academics, including historian Irfan Habib, protested after Kerala Governor Arif Mohammad Khan supported the act. Mr. Irfan Habib stopped the governor from misquoting historical facts. Meanwhile, an all-women protest and sit-in has continued for the last 13 days in New Delhi, despite the severe cold. Talking to media, the women said they are fighting for their next generations and will stand like mountains against the act. Moving on to the Middle East, Egypt, where 28 people have been killed in 2 separate road crashes, one in Port Said city and the other east of Cairo. Security officials say 24 others were injured, several of them tourists, and some are in critical condition. In Port Said, a minibus carrying garment factory workers collided with a truck, killing 22. The accident came only hours after 2 buses carrying tourists collided with a truck near Cairo. Health officials say 2 Malaysian women and an Indian man were also killed, along with 3 Egyptians. Meanwhile, in Iraq, protesters have broken into the Nasiriyah oil field and forced employees in the control room to cut off the field's power supply. Security officials said the oil field is offline until further notice. Now, the protesters hailed President Barham Saleh's rejection of Assad al-Idani's nomination for Prime Minister. The Nasiriyah oil field produces 90,000 barrels of oil per day. This is the first time protesters have shut down an entire oil field since demonstrations began on 1st of October of this year. Iraq's economy depends on oil exports largely, which make up over 90% of its revenue. The Speaker of Libya's eastern-based parliament says Turkey's offer to deploy troops in the country is unacceptable. Aguila Saleh said such a move will amount to unwanted meddling in the internal affairs of a sovereign state. Saleh said Turkey's actions are ratcheting up tensions and destabilizing the region. Saleh condemned the maritime border agreement that Turkey signed with the Tripoli-based government of national accord. Meanwhile, Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has warned that Russia and Turkey are setting the agenda in their involvement in Libya's conflict. Conte said Moscow and Ankara were only pursuing a military and not a political solution to the North African state. Hundreds of demonstrators have gathered near the Russian consulate in Istanbul to protest against the ongoing attacks on Idlib. The demonstrators, mostly Syrians living in Turkey, chanted slogans against Russia for attacks on civilian targets in rebel-held Idlib. Demonstrators said they wanted to highlight the Syrian government's violence against civilians and the humanitarian situation unfolding in the province. Protesters, including women with their children, held pictures of victims and banners lamenting the world's silence on the issue. Meanwhile, the UN says that over 230,000 people have been displaced in Syria amid intensified attacks in the recent days. Moving on to France, the anti-government Yellow Vest movement. They've joined trade unions in protests against President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plan. Now, protesters clashed with the police in Paris as they fired tear gas to disperse groups of demonstrators. The protesters also set fire to barricades and smashed up a bus stop. Union leaders said they will continue to strike as long as their demands aren't met. The Yellow Vest movement sprung up a year ago as a backlash against the high cost of living in France. The self-declared Republic of Donetsk says Ukrainian authorities and pro-Russian separatists have agreed to a prisoner swap on Sunday. In a statement, a Donetsk government spokesperson said 2 separatist territories will get 87 prisoners, while 55 others will be handed over to Kiev. She said the prisoner exchange is expected to take place near the town of Gorlivka in the separatist-held Donetsk region. The exchange will come 3 months after Ukraine carried out a long-awaited exchange with Russia of 35 prisoners each. Earlier, the leaders of France, Germany, Russia and Ukraine agreed to implement a full ceasefire by 2020 at the Paris summit. And in Italy, an avalanche has killed a woman and 2 children who were skiing on a glacier in the Alps. State media says 2 other people were injured in the landslide at the Val Senalis glacier in the province of South Tyrol. Rescue officials said a team of 70 workers and 3 helicopters helped recover the bodies in a search operation. He said all the victims were German nationals. Bolivia's foreign minister, Karen Longaric, says Mexico should stay out of Bolivian domestic affairs. In an interview, Longaric said Bolivia is not a colony of Mexico. The foreign minister said President Lopez Obrador's government should respect Bolivian sovereignty. She also said that Bolivian interests are not the same as the interests of another country's president. Earlier, Mexico moved the International Criminal Court to ensure the protection of its diplomatic facilities in Bolivia. Bilateral relations became tense after Mexico gave political asylum to former Bolivian President Evo Morales last month. 6 people have been killed and 5 others wounded in a shootout in central Mexico. Authorities said the attack took place in Uriangato, a city in the state of Guanajuato. In a statement, the mayor's office said police initially found 5 dead bodies. One of those wounded died after being brought to a nearby clinic. The office said it asked state authorities to ramp up security with 60 members of the public security forces. Police also recovered a discarded firearm and several bullet casings from the crime scene. Mexico's government says Guanajuato has recorded over 3,000 deaths between January and November. In the United States, 5 people have been killed after a plane crashed next to a Walmart supermarket in Louisiana. Local media says 3 other people on the ground were injured and were taken to the hospital. The number of people aboard the plane is not yet known. The impact of the crash blew out the windows of a nearby post office. Local media said the Walmart supermarket was evacuated following the crash. More news out of the U.S. 2 people have been killed and 7 others injured during a drive-by shooting at a music video set in Houston. Police said people were in the parking lot of an office complex filming a rap video when they were ambushed by shooters. It said 2 people were pronounced dead at the scene and the injured were sent to hospital. An investigation is underway into the incident. Coming back to India, at least 12 infants have died within a span of 48 hours this week in the western state of Rajasthan. Authorities have formed a 3-member team to investigate this matter, as the reason for the deaths remain unknown. Local media says 77 children have died in a month, and a total of 940 expired this year alone. It said an initial investigation revealed a lack of infrastructural amenities in the hospitals. The children's deaths reflect India's underfunded and poorly managed public healthcare system, which hasn't improved despite the government's vows to fix the system. NASA, welcome back. We'll get back to more news in detail now. NASA has revealed its latest Mars rover designed to seek out signs of life on the red planet. It will be used in part 1 of a 2-part mission in July 2020, collecting samples to analyze them back on Earth. More in this report.
The rover, which remains unnamed for now, was shown to the media under strict guidelines. Members of the press weren't allowed to wear makeup or perfume and had to wear the same white suits worn by NASA engineers.
So what we do in this room is we make sure we have a strict clean room protocol so that we are not contaminating our vehicles, so that we can preserve the science that we are interested in learning about.
The rover will be sent to Mars Jezero crater, which scientists believe was once a great lake. Here, the rover will pull samples from the ground, which will eventually be brought back to Earth in the mission's second phase.
We're carrying about 40 tubes on the vehicle. We're going to collect 20 to 30 probably for return. Once we have a sufficient set, we'll put them down on the ground. And another mission, which we hope to launch in 2026, will come, land on the surface, collect those samples, and put them into a rocket, basically.
The rover will eventually be named in early 2020. NASA's previous 4 Mars rovers were named Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity.
The British Backpackers Society has declared Pakistan as the world's 3rd highest potential adventure destination for 2020. The society made the announcement after counting votes from adventure travel experts from around the world. In a post, the society called Pakistan a travel gem with otherworldly beauty, unforgettable road trips, and hospitality at its core. It said besides offering stunning landscape in the north, the country offers rich culture, tradition, and history in bulk. The society said with a new e-visa system and reforms, Pakistani government has put tourism at the forefront and the center of its policy. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.